Welcome back, everyone. In this session, we're diving deep into the transformative potential of podcasts for driving full funnel growth. We're thrilled to have experts from Tinuiti and SiriusXM joining us today, bringing us really valuable insights and expertise to the table. So I'm not going to review all the logistics again. I know you guys have heard me talk about this a million times already, but I will just say recording and slides will be in your inbox tomorrow afternoon, so keep an eye out for those. And super excited to turn this over to our speakers so that they can introduce themselves. Adrina, I'll kick it over to you first.
There we go. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for staying with us and joining in on this session within the series. My co-host and I will focus on podcasting and why including it in your marketing strategy will only help build your brand success. I am Adrina May, a director on the media team at Tinuiti, working across linear, streaming, and audio strategies. While I've been at Tinuiti for just over 2 years, my experience in the industry spans 16. Joining me as co-host today are Otto Chan and Megan Kniesny, two of our most trusted network partners within our partnership at SiriusXM, both well known for their expertise in the audio landscape.
Thanks, Adrina, for having us. Megan and I are very grateful to be here. At SiriusXM Media, we know audio is one of the fastest growing mediums. We know Americans are spending close to 5 hours a day with audio. And over the last 5 years, through acquisitions and also exclusive partnerships, we now have presence across streaming audio, satellite, and podcasting. So we've evolved from being just one single audio publisher to now we're an audio platform, all with the goal to help advertisers reach key audiences across audio with ease. And of course, we believe heavily in the power of podcasting. And over the course of our session today, we'll talk about what makes this medium unique and how you can leverage this medium to drive success for your brand.
Oops. There we go. Great. Thank you. And before we jump in, we would love to know from our audience, are you currently utilizing podcasts in your marketing strategies? To access the poll, refer to the right-hand side of your screen, and at the very top next to chat, click here. Click there will you'll be able to plug in your answers. Excellent. Great. For those of you who don't currently have podcasts within your strategy, I hope we can shed some light on as to why you should consider including them in your future campaigns. Great. It's no surprise that digital audio, whether it's satellite radio, streaming audio, or podcasts, has seen a remarkable shift in its increasing popularity over the last few years. By the end of 2024, an estimated 2 out of 3 Americans will be digital audio listeners, superseding those consuming content on platforms like YouTube, Netflix, and Hulu. What's even more astounding is that 75% of internet users will be engrossed in streaming music, podcasts this year. The latter is what we'll focus on today. Although the era of explosive growth might be behind us, podcasts are still attracting new listeners at a faster rate than digital audio overall. In 2023, U.S. podcast audiences grew by 4.6%. And with this increase in podcast listenership, it's no surprise that advertising spending is following suit. We're forecasting that podcasting will account for nearly a third of all digital audio ads, exceeding $4 billion in ad spend in 2024, marking a 16% year-over-year increase. This is partly attributed to brands aligning with podcast hosts that audiences trust, as well as dynamic ad insertion, which we'll talk a little bit more later on, and improved tracking capabilities, which empowers advertisers to measure podcast ad performance precisely.
Cool. Yeah. So like Adrina mentioned, the growth that we've seen on podcasts has been astronomical, right? In the past 10 years alone, monthly podcast listenership has increased by 350%, right? So today, accounting for over 120 million Americans, and like Adrina mentioned, over 150 million people by 2027. And why are people drawn to this medium? Well, podcasts are landing with powerful and unexpected audiences. No topic is too niche, too specific, or too nerdy. It doesn't matter where you live, what language you speak, or even what your interests are. Listeners can dive as deeply as they want to, free to be themselves, and also satisfy their curiosity without the judgment of their friends or people around them. And podcasts are also attention grabbing. See, podcasts are unique because podcasts can be consumed while you're multitasking. So when you're doing any other activity like driving, at the gym, on a walk, or washing the dishes. And it's this convenience that really makes it easier for listeners to engage with the content and also be able to increase the chances of them staying for longer periods and also coming back. And I'll kick it over to Megan now so she can also dive a little bit more about why people are so invested in this type of content.
Awesome. Thanks, Otto. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this phenomenon of podcasts and really explore why they have become and really continue to be such a prominent medium in our lives. So firstly, let's talk about their authenticity. In a world that's really saturated with like scripted content and curated images, podcasts do offer a breath of fresh air. Unlike traditional media, podcasts will often feature unfiltered conversations, really genuine emotions, and raw storytelling. And listeners are drawn to that authenticity of hosts who speak directly to them and share their personal experiences, their opinions, and expertise. So it's this authenticity that really fosters a sense of trust and connection between the host and the audience, making the listener experience intimate and relatable. So also captivating hosts and stories. So podcasts are home to a very diverse range of voices. Like Otto mentioned, there's nothing too granular, too niche. And each voice has its own unique perspective and its storytelling style. So whether it's a true crime mystery, which is my personal favorite, a deep dive into history, or a lighthearted comedy show, there really is something for everybody. No topic or subject is going to be too granular. And it's the engaging hosts who have the ability to draw those listeners in and keep them hooked episode after episode with the compelling narratives and thought-provoking discussions. So it's this magnetic pull of storytelling that really keeps audiences coming back for more. Unlike passive forms of media consumption, podcast listeners are really loyal to and actively engaging in the content they consume. How many of you have accidentally like zoned out a little bit during a podcast for a few seconds and then had to go back and re-listen to that portion of the show? I know I'm guilty. People are very actively listening. So not only are people listening attentively, but they're also participating in discussions around like the content. They share their favorite shows with friends and families. I know that I've shared out links to my favorite podcasts and even specific episodes telling friends like, this is the one that you have to listen to, to get you hooked on the show. So it's really this high level of engagement that fosters the loyalty among listeners. And the community that they build. So whether it's through an online forum, maybe a social media group, or live events, podcasts do have the power to bring people together, and listeners bond over those shared experiences, maybe inside jokes from the show or the host, and meaningful conversations sparked by those favorite podcasts. These communities provide a sense of belonging and connection in an increasingly fragmented world and really enriching the overall listening experience. So it's really for all of these reasons that podcast listenership has grown so much over the years with no signs of slowing. And it's important to understand and know how to apply these fundamentals because that trust that the listener places in the host really seamlessly extends to the brands that those hosts promote. So as a result, brands often find a lot of success in partnering with podcasts to reach their target audience in a very authentic and impactful way. Now, if our insights haven't quite hit home, let's turn to none other than the queen of true crime herself, Ashley Flowers. She'll share firsthand what inspires her to craft top-notch content and the vibrant community that has really flourished around it. So let's take a look.
I'm Ashley Flowers, the creator and host of the #1 true crime podcast in the world, Crime Junkie, and most recently, The Deck. I'm also the founder and CEO of Audio Chuck, which has launched a number of true crime shows, all at #1. And that is because I know my audience. I like to say that my mother, even her mother before her, were the OG crime junkies. I didn't get into this business because it's trendy or that's what other people were doing. I really am passionate about the work and the advocacy we're doing, and it's why we've been able to amass such an unprecedented following. Our listeners recognize that, and they want to be part of that with us. They see themselves in us. There are people who want to do more than listen. They want to engage. They want to engage with the stories, with the causes, with the education, and even with us as friends. We have had one listener who even used what she learned on the show to solve her sister's murder. And I know that sounds super niche. Some people are scared off by the true crime genre. It seems really heavy, but it'd be surprising, I think, to people the way people engage with us just as friends. And they really turn to me and Britt as those two best friends. I can't even tell you the thousands of letters that we have gotten from people saying that Britt and myself are the friends that they're relying on to get them through a rough patch. We invest and engage in our community like no other podcast. And in turn, our listeners have a deep trust in us. Listen, I can talk all day long about our show and our fans, but the best thing you can do is get in there yourself. Get in the comments on Instagram. We have a Facebook discussion group, even our fan club. See the community that we have activated. Be a part of it. And who knows, you might become a crime junkie yourself.
Great. And as we all know, podcasts feature a wide range of hosts, from rising stars who have gained fame through their podcasts, like Ashley Flowers of Crime Junkie, to established celebrities from television, film, and music who seek new ways to engage with their fan base. Featuring content hosted by renowned personalities such as Joe Rogan, Conan O'Brien, and the Smartless Trio, podcasts are experiencing an unprecedented surge in popularity among audiences. The COVID shutdown halted main jobs of actors and celebrities in film and television, prompting them to explore new avenues to connect with their fan base, even relaunching or even revitalizing their careers. They share behind-the-scenes insights from popular TV shows or engage in candid conversations with fellow actors. Its affordability and ease of launch really make podcasting an attractive option for famous people like Dax Shepard or Rob Lowe, allowing them to establish deeper connections with their fans. While traditional podcast hosts like Ashley Flowers have already gained fame and shaped the podcasting landscape, brands are recognizing the advantages of collaborating with celebrity hosts. The ability to have celebrities like Conan O'Brien personally endorse products without significant financial commitments, it really presents a unique and valuable opportunity not commonly found in other media platforms. Let's take a listen to a sample host read from Conan O'Brien, personalizing his experience with Zelle.
Zelle is a great way to send money to family and friends, no matter where they bank in the United States of America. Sona, you use Zelle.
I did. Recently, I had a handyman do some work on an apartment, and I never saw him, and I just paid him through Zelle, and it was so easy. He just
made it
went
easy,
there,
right?
And I paid him. Never had to interact with him.
You know,
didn't have to get cash.
Here's the thing. A lot of young people don't know this, but there used to be a time, and I'm an old timer, I can tell you, where when you had to pay someone, you had to go. You had to wait in line, get the cash from the teller, get on a horse, ride across town, get off the horse, climb a lot of wooden stairs, and then hand the cash to the person who's churning your butter. This is a long time ago, but my point is that was a world without Zelle. Here's the deal. Money sent goes straight into the recipient's bank account, typically in minutes between enrolled users. So you don't have to download another app. Because here's the best part. It's already in over 1,000 different banking apps.
Yeah, it's nice.
I'm telling you, Zelle is the way to go. If you want to pay someone, use Zelle. Look for Zelle in your banking app today.
They just make it so fun, don't they?
I was cracking up. I had to turn off my microphone.
As someone from Boston, I really resonate with Conan. And on his, I'd love to share a fun tidbit with you guys about Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. It recently won an iHeart Podcast Award for Best Ad Read Podcast, 2 Gold Signal Awards for Best Host Read and Creative and Marketing, and People's Voice Webby Awards for Internet Interview and Talk Show Host, all in 2023 alone. So kudos to him, and it's a great alignment. The media around A-list celebrities getting into podcasting really helps drive interest for brands that are looking for effective growth sources outside of digital advertising. Celebrities bring in a diverse and new audience to the medium. And as Megan mentioned before, for most people, once they discover a podcast they connect with, they are hooked.
Yeah, thanks, Adrina. And that is, excuse me, a great point. And a lot of reason behind why podcast listeners are really what we call super listeners. I mean, these engagement metrics really speak volumes. According to Edison Research, they show an impressive, average of over 5 hours of weekly listening with podcasts, which Otto chatted about earlier. And the research also shows an exceptional ad recall rate with 86% of listeners recalling advertisements, which is, mic drop moment, the highest recall of any medium. And perhaps most compelling, over half of podcast listeners have a higher likelihood of purchasing products advertised on a podcast compared to other media channels. So all these statistics really underscore huge impact and effectiveness of podcast advertising in reaching and influencing an audience. I'll kick it back over to Adrina to talk more about ways to take advantage of the medium.
Thank you. For those of us who have been in the industry long enough, it's no secret that the marketing funnel can help brands identify where potential customers are in the buying process and help tailor their ad dollars accordingly. Podcasts can really fall into different stages of the funnel depending on its specific objectives and the content of the podcast. Understanding where podcasts fall is important for brands looking to optimize their marketing efforts. When we talk about podcast advertising, there are 2 primary options to buy: host reads or run-of-network ads, or RONs. Host reads involve the host of a specific show doing the ad read, just like the one we just heard from Conan. RONs, on the other hand, is a podcast network that aggregates a group of podcast shows. Both options have their own benefits and limitations, but they can be highly effective depending on how you utilize them. Host reads in particular are massively popular because they often feature personal experiences and a more natural delivery. This approach helps create a campaign grounded in high-profile recommendations, establishing a brand's credibility and allowing hosts to choose an approach that they will know will resonate with their own listeners. Speaking organically to their love of the brand can allow a listener to really connect with the host and align themselves with the brand. Simply put, an audience that trusts the host will trust the brand. On the other hand, podcast RONs are utilized because they can reach key audiences at scale across thousands of podcasts. Ads are pre-recorded and inserted into a podcast episode during a break, ultimately served to a listener because they fit the audience criteria for the campaign. They can bring more CPM efficiency to a brand's podcast footprint, adding both frequency and layering on advanced audience targeting. Here at Tinuiti and throughout the industry, podcasts are used as a crucial component and in many brands' cross-channel strategy, serving as a powerful tool within any full funnel approach. The big takeaway here is podcast advertising can drive full funnel effectiveness, building high brand awareness, favorability, consideration, intent, and ultimately customer acquisition. A well-balanced podcast strategy will utilize personal endorsements, tailored creative content, and audience targeting to act as a full funnel marketing channel. Host reads in particular can serve as a highly effective upper to mid funnel strategy. They provide brands with the opportunity to reach an incremental audience and build awareness among potential new customers. High-profile podcasts sit at the top of the funnel, with millions of weekly listeners presenting significant opportunities for major brand partners to achieve substantial awareness gains. This can be coupled with high-impact audio sponsorships like shoppable units, for example, to drive top-of-funnel metrics. The format of host reads provides a personalized and relevant message that drives brand recall and consideration, leveraging their ability to build trust in a brand and educating customers about the products. Smaller sized host reads and podcast RONs play significant roles in driving mid to bottom funnel results, in particular when pricing and creative align with target demographics. Run-of-network buys, in particular, offer cost-effectiveness and enhanced optimization capabilities and advanced targeting options, making them highly effective. These strategic approaches enable brands to concentrate on audiences with a higher likelihood of conversion by utilizing a diverse range of podcast inventory. With the ever-increasing percentage of people who adopted podcasts into their daily routines, as Otto mentioned before, it's becoming easier for brands to reach their target audience, no matter what stage of the funnel they're investing in. Now that we've discussed the rationale behind purchasing podcasts, let's dive into the methodology. In the past, podcast advertising were really only baked in, meaning they were permanently embedded in an episode, kind of like product placement in a TV show. So they lived in the podcast forever. This created difficulties for advertisers, creators, and listeners alike, as outdated ads could really become irrelevant. For example, you're catching up on your new favorite podcast and doing a deep dive into the catalog from a couple of years ago. I've done it, and I'm sure many of you have. All of a sudden, you're served a baked-in ad with an expired discount code. It can be super frustrating. Although this method is still an option, we've found buying through dynamic ad insertion, or DAI, just more suitable overall. DAI effectively addresses the challenges posed by baked-in ads by seamlessly integrating into the podcast episode itself and really having more control over the flighting. We're able to remove an ad from the podcast after the campaign is finished rather than it staying in there forever. It allows podcasters to dynamically adjust ads and constantly refresh creatives for their brands, staying current with new promotions and offers. We've also improved upon measurability within these podcasts, allowing us to more accurately target consumers. Baked-in ads relied heavily on promo codes or brand lift studies to measure effectiveness, while DAI were able to incorporate a pixel into each ad to gather listener data, both enhancing privacy and accuracy simultaneously. These pixels enable us to track and attribute served ads, integrating this reporting into our broader campaigns like video for a more comprehensive and precise performance analysis. With DAI, we no longer really have to rely on third-party attribution patterns to achieve this level of insight. Most importantly, we can really just leverage DAI to scale up and target listeners in both host reads and podcast RONs.
Awesome. Great, Adrina. So let's dive into a true crime genre-based case study, which really does a great job of demonstrating the practical application of both buying methods, that Adrina just walked us through. So this case study spotlights an activewear brand with a strong focus on engaging with a female audience, really aiming to accomplish two key objectives. So the first is amplify purchase intent. And the second is to strengthen brand messaging. So our strategic approach involved a combination of those tactics that Adrina talked about. So this included the integration of personal experience host reads placed within Crime Junkie's mid-roll ad unit. Shout out to Ashley Flowers, who we heard from earlier in the session. And our expansive podcast network to really extend reach among that brand's target demographic. And the performance met and exceeded the two objectives. We saw a 12-point lift in purchase intent and a 9-point lift in unaided awareness, which is arguably one of the more challenging attributes. So it's really performance and case studies like these that serve as a testament to the full funnel efficacy of podcast advertising.
Amazing. We just love Ashley Flowers here.
We do. Super fan.
This just about wraps it up for our session on podcasts. Megan, Otto, and I we really hope that we've provided you some new insight into podcasts and how it can be integral into your full funnel marketing strategies. With podcast funding surpassing $4 billion this year alone, the amount of podcasts, and the amount of podcasts increasing, it's really just now is the time to include them in your campaigns. Consider adding podcasts into your cross-channel strategies and align your brand with authentic hosts who resonate with your target audience. Podcasts and just audio in general is really just a great channel to round out your media mix.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adrina, Otto, and Megan. Podcasts are so, I feel like everybody listens to podcasts now. So really great discussion, and all these data insights were wonderful. So before we get into Q&A, make sure to join in via the poll tab to let us know if you want to follow up with our digital audio experts after the session ends today. That poll is live in the top right-hand corner of your screen if you toggle over from chat to polls. Just to let everybody know, these QR codes here on the screen will just take you to our speakers' LinkedIn account. So if you would like to join their networks, you can scan those now while we're here. So let's see what we have for questions. So can you share more about the personal experience style host reads?
Yeah, I can take this one. Feel free to chime in, guys. So personal experience is a really unique way to get even more ingrained with a host. So typically a host, once approving of the brand and it's decided to work together, the brand has an opportunity to send over either a product or the service that the host is going to be promoting, for the host to share that experience with their listeners of what it was like, how much it benefited them. And so it really has a very organic feel to it. It's not a requirement by any means in the podcasting space, but it has garnished a lot of popularity just because it really establishes that trust even more deeply with an audience. Good question.
Thank you, Megan. Anybody else want to say? Sorry, I didn't know if I cut anybody off. Awesome. So just like while we're talking about host reads, why pair podcast network and host reads?
Megan, you want to take that?
Yeah, I can take this one. Yeah, of course. So yeah, there's actually a lot of data from Edison, which shows the different reach to the US population by podcasts of popularity. So for example, like the top 10 podcasts reach about 35% of the US population. So if you're advertising on those podcasts, fantastic, you're reaching 35%, but what about the remainder of the audience that could potentially be reached? So really leveraging that podcast network allows you to get a more massive reach because it is an aggregate of multiple shows, multiple publishers. And so you're really able to extend that message out and ultimately the reach of an audience.
Thank you, Megan. And then what are the most popular genres of podcasts, and should I align them with my brand, or should I align my brand with them? Excuse me.
Yeah, I can hop in here. So I think it kind of is a wide variety of genres, but I think the top are comedy, news, culture, crime, sports, and business. I think those just kind of span everything, but really the answer to should I align my brand with them is really just kind of yes and no. I think there's really no need to follow podcast genre trends. You can definitely launch a successful podcast campaign outside of these categories, especially if you have really just a niche target audience. But The benefit of targeting a popular genre is that your audience is really just hungry for that content. There's already kind of a captive audience who wants to tap into the programming.
And I'd also think about who your audience is, right? If your audience is a specific type of demo, we have research. I'm sure Adrina can point in research that shows that aren't just the top popular podcasts. There's a lot of podcasts that are maybe on like the 100 to 150 that have extremely loyal listeners as well too. And so if you're able to tell us, share a little bit of info on who your audience is, we can then align you with podcasts to make a lot of sense. So really it's just, you can have one of those big catchy podcasts from the top 50, and then also pair that on the same media plan with podcasts that are a little bit less popular, but still have that really audience that's captivated.
Thank you all for thoroughly answering those questions. We did get a question from our audience member, Samuel. So he wants to know, what are our panelists' favorite podcast?
In case anyone didn't get it, the examples, mine is Crime Junkie.
I am a big Conan fan, so Conan, but I think my number one is Smartless. I just can't get enough of those guys.
Smartless is one of mine. School of Greatness is one. And I don't think we all plan to share that they're all SXM Media podcasts as well.
Just so happens to be that way.
Maybe I shouldn't share mine because I don't think mine is, but
Okay.
Mine is like really niche because in the Bravo universe, but it's called Giggly Squad with Paige DeSorbo and Hannah. I love it. It's really funny. So if you do like Bravo stuff, that's something you should check out.
Good one.
Speaking of Bravo, NBCU is on with us next. So see, it all works in together. Well, thank you to our audience members. And before we conclude today's session, let me go ahead and launch this really quick. I want to highlight this relevant resource from Tinuiti, the digital audio playbook. So you can access the guide by clicking the link I just launched at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. It's packed with really good insights, so I highly recommend everyone explore that if you get a chance. And then thank you so much again, Adrina, Megan, and Otto. Big thanks to our audience for tuning in. We have one more session today, so don't go anywhere just yet. We're going to take a quick break and be right back with NBC Universal to discuss media buying in an election year. So we will see you all in about 5 minutes. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you all.
Thanks.